How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 3.
My fellow Americans, it is Eric Erickson here across the United States, and I am delighted to have you joining me. The phone number is 877-973-7425 if you'd like to be on the program. If you text ENGAGE to 33777, the gathering is coming up about a month and a half. August 8th through the 11th in Atlanta, Georgia. Glenn Youngkin, the governor of Virginia, is going to be there the night of the 8th. He's going to hang out with folks. I'm told we're going to do door prizes and things. It's going to be some sort of they're going to surprise me to some degree with it, but Glenn Youngkin wants to hang out with the crowd and would love to have you there. If you text the word ENGAGE to 33777, you can get a ticket. They are on sale now. And we would love to have you with us. Now, I got to talk about something that happened to me and my family, but it's going to happen to all of us. If you read my daily email, you got the gist of this morning, but we have a problem on our hands nationally. And I want to be very, very clear up front. This is a regional problem in the Southeast United States where I am, but it is affecting people across the nation. It just happens to disproportionately affect people who live in the Carolinas, Georgia, South Carolina, Florida, and Alabama. But it's going to affect all of us. Postmaster General DeJoy, was Donald Trump's pick to run the post office and wanted to streamline it and bring efficiencies to the Postal Service. One of the things he decided to do was to consolidate 4 mail sorting operations in the Southeast into one big facility in Palmetto, Georgia. There were regional facilities, like Georgia had one in the north, one in the south. There were a couple others, and he decided to combine them into one major facility in Palmetto, Georgia, to handle the whole of the Southeast. All the mail that comes into the Southeast United States or passes through it or is generated out of it is sorted through this facility. And it is then carted off to local post offices around the Southeast by truck. Additionally, they decided at the post office to rely on their own fleet instead of relying on outsourced contractors to ship mail through the Southeast. Additionally, the post office nationally has decided to prioritize a contract with Amazon.com to get Amazon packages to people on a timely manner. The result is a disaster. The result is a disaster. And I know about it firsthand. So for those of you new to the program, in 2016, my lungs filled up with blood clots. I thought it was CrossFit first. Just couldn't keep up, couldn't catch my breath. Then it proceeded to I just couldn't breathe. I'd go up the steps and be out of gas. And I went from, it's CrossFit and I'm molding out of shape, to it's allergies, to my wife saying, you got to go to the hospital. And I was there for about a week and a half, 2 weeks. My lungs had filled up with blood clots. They treated me like a stroke victim. And they thought it was just a one-time fluke, that I had gotten sick on a flight to Las Vegas for the CNN debate into 2015, and that's probably when it happened, and just sat too long, blah, 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 blah. Well, fast forward several years, I'm doing 6 hours of radio nonstop, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., and I'm sitting that whole time, minus breaks to the bathroom. and I get clots again in my lungs. We're negotiating contracts and stuff, and I'm just like, I'm stressed. I get clots a second time. They're like, you're on blood thinner for life now. I take Xarelto's, 10 milligrams of Xarelto. Xarelto it's pricey, but I've got good insurance. It covers it. I have a discount card with the company, and I don't, like a lot of blood thinner, you see people on Coumadin or warfarin or whatever, rat poison essentially, and they've got bruises all over. Their skin gets a little brittle looking. They get bruises all over. I don't bruise with Xarelto. In fact, half the time I don't think it's working. Until I nearly cut my finger off on a mandolin a while back making onion rings, and then I was like, oh, the blood thinner really does work. Last week I couldn't get my Xarelto because it had been shipped, but the post office had not delivered it. A week past due. It's actually 2 different medicines I couldn't get last week because the postal service. On Saturday, a friend of my daughter's who lives less than 10 miles away from us got my daughter's graduation announcement. It was postmarked April 16th. Just for the record, this would have been June 22nd, 2024. The graduation announcement was sent April 16th, 2024. We've still got friends my daughter sent graduation announcements to who have not gotten them. I've got a friend of mine who lives a mile from me. He got it a few weeks ago. My sisters both got their graduation announcement the week after my daughter graduated. She graduated on May 16th. She mailed them out on April 16th. The weekend after my daughter's graduation, they started showing up in people's mailboxes. A buddy of mine lives in North Atlanta. His company in April had to lay off a couple dozen people because they had revenue shortfall. They had outstanding revenue on the books. They had accounts payable. People were saying, we've paid, but they weren't getting the checks from December, January, February, and March. Revenue was short. They had to lay people off. The checks have been coming in pretty steadily. Revenue is back up. They're now trying to rehire the people they laid off in April, and they're having trouble rehiring people, and now they've got a staffing shortage because the company it relied on the post office for mail, and the mail did not get delivered. Rome, Georgia, had to advise people that they were having trouble getting absentee ballots returned. They had mailed absentee ballots, but the people hadn't actually gotten their absentee ballots and so couldn't vote and return the ballots. You see where this is all headed. What is a regional mail problem in the Southeast is going to affect 2 swing states, North Carolina and Georgia, because the post office can't get mail delivered. I mentioned I voted in the Democratic primary this year in my area. We didn't have any contested Republican races on the ballot, but in my county, the sheriff was up for re-election. The sheriff in my county wins in the Democratic primary. It doesn't matter who the Republican is, the Republican's going to lose. So if you want to save the sheriff, you got to vote in the Democratic primary. And the wokes were coming for my sheriff, who is very aggressive about arresting people. So I had to vote in the Democratic primary. I filed my absentee ballot application. It never got delivered to the local board of elections by the post office. So I had to go vote in person instead of absentee ballot because the Board of Elections never even got my absentee ballot to process. This is going to happen for the election. It's going to affect Georgia. It's going to affect North Carolina. It's going to affect Florida, although I don't think Florida is a swing state. Some Democrats, Joe Biden's team is saying they think they can win it. Not when you can't get absentee ballots and early ballots in the mail. This is going to be a massive problem, y'all. It is foreseeable. The Democrats, for their part, they're blaming the Postmaster General, DeJoy, who is Donald Trump's pick. The problem has everything to do with this one particular mail processing facility in the state of Georgia, Palmetto, where packages from around the nation going to, from, or through the Southeast are routed. One of the news channels in Atlanta, Liz Lucas at 11 Alive, she put up a tweet and a graphic from back in March. This is how long April rather. Says Georgia post office delay. See below as to why residents are frustrated. This package was sent in February and is still bouncing around the system here on April 2nd. It's moved through Palmetto, the new processing facility in Atlanta, and in Florida. It's in Louisville, Kentucky now, and that's not the final destination. So the package was accepted at the post office in Burnsville, Minnesota. On March 21st, it arrived in Jacksonville, Florida. or rather on March 16th, it arrived in Jacksonville, Florida. On March 21st, it made it to Palmetto, Georgia. It then arrived at a post office in Atlanta the same day, March 21st, and then was routed to and arrived in Jacksonville, Florida on March 22nd. It then left the Jacksonville, Florida post office on March 23rd and arrived in Hinesville, Georgia on March 23rd, same day. A missing mail request was filed on March 24th. It was then shipped off on March 29th to Louisville, Kentucky, where it arrived at the end of the day. By April 2nd, it was still in Louisville, Kentucky. That is disastrous. On top of that, around the country, the post office is prioritizing Amazon packages because the post office wants to be able to pay for itself. Never mind, they're going to raise the price of a stamp again. But it's almost to $1 a stamp. What is it going to go up to 80 cents a stamp? The post office has had problems for a very long time, but the problems are getting worse, and not just in the Southeast. So by prioritizing Amazon packages over first-class mail, rural post office carriers, particularly in the upper Midwest, are saying they're having to drive these long routes on rural roads to deliver Amazon packages, and they can't keep up with their first-class mail. The first-class mail is piling up, and they're short-staffed. Postmaster DeJoy tried to bring efficiencies to the system. A buddy of mine who's very familiar with this says, here's what happened. They told postal employees who are unionized that you're all moving to Palmetto, Georgia, or you can find a new job. Many of them said they would move to Palmetto, Georgia, and then have not showed up for work. They've been sick for quite a while. They haven't wanted to move. They're doing a sick out, essentially. It's put everything behind, and it is a disaster. Now, what's so funny here is that the Democrats, who for a long time blasted Louis DeGeorge as Donald Trump's pick destroying the post office, actually have been singing his praises as of last year. Let me read you this. This is from Time Magazine. Louis DeJoy thought his workday was done as he arrived home one evening in February 2022. The Postmaster General was locked in a grueling, months-long battle with Congress over a bill to shake up the Postal Service. But as he settled in, his cell phone rang, and pulling it out, he saw it was Chuck Schumer calling. The second most powerful Democrat in America wanted to know how the whip count was going. As it happened, the count was coming along nicely. DeJoy may be best known as the Trump-era GOP megadonor, the left accused of meddling with mail-in voting in 2020. But by the time Schumer called him on this frigid winter night, DeJoy was on his way to convincing congressional Republicans to buy into a lengthy Democratic wish list of postal reforms. When President Biden signed the landmark legislation of the law 2 months later, it guaranteed a union-friendly version of 6-day mail service and stabilized health coverage for the post office employees. Louis DeJoy had convinced Republicans to vote for it. He would help advance a key Democratic agenda that seemed unfathomable just a few years ago. The boogeyman of the right was suddenly the Democrats' favorite Republican in Washington, D.C. Ironically, part of this profile has him at the Palmetto facility in Georgia, where he's talking about bringing efficiencies. His venture in the Post Office Regional Processing Center in Atlanta, as he walked through in February, he was eager to talk it up. The plant is replete with new equipment. Nowhere can you escape the hum of construction. Crews are installing charging stations for soon-to-come electric vehicles. Postal workers are approaching him. It's a far cry of where things were when he started. Now the Democrats are back to vilifying the guy. The problem is this facility in the southeast United States in Palmetto, Georgia, but it's going to wreak havoc across the country when it comes to the election. This is foreseeable. I'm raising the warning signs now. I haven't gotten medicine. My daughter's graduation announcements have been delayed. Friends of mine have had to lay off employees because checks have not come through the mail in a timely manner. I know one guy, by the way, he got a notice from the IRS that he had not paid his taxes, and he needed to do so, and they were charging interest and penalties. He had paid his taxes back in March, and the IRS had not gotten the check by the time they sent him a notice that he hadn't paid his taxes at the beginning of this month. This is a huge problem. It's not a Democrat problem. It's not a Republican problem. It is a problem for everybody. Neither Democrats nor Republicans are going to get their absentee ballots, and both sides are already clamoring about a stolen election coming. This is a foreseeable touch point that could be improved to ameliorate any allegations of a stolen election, and yet neither Democrats nor Republicans in Washington seem to want to do anything about it. The only person who's concerned about it, by the way, seems to be like Senator John Ossoff of Georgia, a Democrat, who's made this his big issue. No one else seems to care. Everybody should care. You will be made to care when everybody's screaming about a stolen election and nobody's gotten their absentee ballots because they're all held up in Georgia. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. And yes, you can call in. Phone lines are open, 877-973-7425. Netflix has a documentary out, Tell Them You Love Me, about Anna Stubblefield, a disabilities professor who embraced facilitated communication. Facilitated communication is where you guide someone's hand on a keyboard who otherwise can't talk. It's been discredited. In 2015, Stubblefield was convicted and sentenced to 12 years in prison for the aggravated sexual assault of Derek Johnson, a 33-year-old severely mentally disabled black man with cerebral palsy who couldn't speak. Back in 2009, Stubblefield convinced Derek's parents to let her use facilitated communication to potentially unlock Derek's ability to communicate. It involved her holding his hand to help him type out his thoughts on the keyboard. Using facilitated communication, Stubblefield believed Derek was not only capable of communication, but was brilliant. He was composing poetry, writing essays for university courses. She convinced herself Derek loved her and was seducing her, and she loved him too. And that culminated in her raping him. Now, peer-reviewed studies using simple blind techniques have unequivocally demonstrated facilitated communications as pseudoscience. For instance, when both the non-speaking person and the facilitator were shown the same picture of a common subject, such as a shoe, the facilitator would correctly type out SHOE. However, when shown different images, the typed word inevitably matched what the facilitator, not the non-speaking person, had seen. Despite these devastating results, it's still around. What's notable about this is how these pseudoscientific ideas, they have morphed into biology and gender studies and things like that. It's absolute pseudoscience, but the people who believe, my goodness, do they ever believe? Well, I want you to think about the banks that are collapsing and the gold that is being hoarded by China and the potential for ramifications around the world, and the 22-year high interest rates as well. Swiss America has been the trusted leader in precious metals for 40 years. They've been warning people about the secret war on cash. If you're interested in safeguarding your hard-earned cash from the secret war on cash, you can get this free report from Swiss America. They're rated A+ by the Better Business Bureau. Swiss America can educate you on protecting your assets. Here's what you need to do. First, you can go watch the secret war on cash on YouTube. Go to SwissAmerica.com/YouTube. You can see what they're talking about at SwissAmerica.com/YouTube, and then you can get their report for free. It takes 15 minutes to read, and it'll help you think about your retirement and finances. Go read the report by calling or texting 800-289-2646. The War on Cash includes digital forms of currency. All you do, mention my name, Eric, E-R-I-C-K, when you call or text 800-289-2646. 800-289-2646. Just text my name, Eric. Message and data rates may apply. Greetings, conversationalists. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, I have had several people ask how my golf game went on Friday afternoon. It's pretty good. 2 beers in. Went downhill from there. It was fine. It was, this is Pride Month, and I celebrated by not hitting a single straight shot the entire 18 holes. Y'all, we had a lot of fun. It was terrible golf, and we had a lot of fun. That is the answer to the question. Also, I'm getting flooded with emails from people about their golf, or their mail experiences, and everybody everywhere is having problems with the post office right now. I do want you to know, in all seriousness, speaking about golf, I get asked to do charitable events and to play golf. I'm a really terrible golfer, and I'm just not comfortable going to a charity event. I got a buddy, Kyle, who is Kyle Davis. He's a golf pro who actually has improved my game better than like some of the elite golf courses in the country I've gone to. And he is up in Cartersville, Georgia, is just phenomenal coach. And, he was a policeman and he's like, I can get off the tee with him. He's phenomenal. He was at Barnsley Gardens and is moved to the country club there in Cartersville. I got to get up for a lesson. He's just a solid dude and just great at explaining the fundamentals and getting me off the ground. But I'm so bad, and I don't want to handicap because I'd like to play by myself. Or with friends. I don't want to play in a tournament. I don't need a handicap. I'm a member of the Broken Tee Society, and everybody's like, "What's your handicap, dude?" And I was like, "I have no idea. My handicap is measured in balls lost and beers drunk. It's not measured in hits, but I have fun and I enjoy it." Now, I want to move on to this issue with Donald Trump because he had several things to say over the weekend. But to get there, I want to go back to this clip. I played it the other day or earlier in the show. And I want to play it again for you because I think it matters that much. And so as we begin here, a couple of things. My friend Scott Jennings is a CNN commentator. He's a Republican. He worked for Mitch McConnell. Broadcast from Kentucky. He was a former special assistant to President Bush. And I want you to hear the CNN anchor. And I'm not sure who the anchor is. It's a weekend anchor, I believe. I think this is a weekend show. And here's the thing I learned when I was at CNN. At CNN, I was told by one of the more prominent anchors, who will go nameless, I should never do the midday shows on CNN. Now, this is at a time that CNN was broadcast mostly from Atlanta during the day. What the anchor at CNN, who's still prominent and still there, told me is that the midday shows at CNN, those anchors are way more progressive than anyone else at the network because they've convinced themselves they need to stand out by being combative and progressive so that they might get promoted to New York. And I should avoid those midday shows at CNN. Now, I still like CNN. I criticize them regularly, but I still like the network. And I'm afraid that they should have kept Chris Lick there despite his faults because he was doing his best to bring them back to being very fair, balanced, middle of the road. And the new guy has allowed them to go back off the rails with progressivism. And I can't help but note the editorializing by the CNN anchor about Trump's quote-unquote xenophobic comments by calling immigrants criminals and things like that. And Scott Jennings responds, I think, pretty beautifully and precisely. And I also, he sent me this clip himself, and he said, your piece was the inspiration for this rant. And it was timely for him, given the direction of this conversation with this anchor at CNN.
2/3 of the American people support Donald Trump's policy prescriptions for immigration right now, including a majority of Hispanics in the United States.
But what about his comments? Do you see them as racist and xenophobic comments? I mean, he's painting migrants as, being violent.
Notice she said migrants as well, not illegal aliens.
They have violent tendencies, right? And of course, dehumanizing them to being entertainment for the rest of us.
Is he painting them as being violent? I mean, would Lake and Riley think they were violent? Would Rachel Marin think they were violent? Would Jocelyn Nungare in Texas think they were violent? How about the girl that was raped in broad daylight in New York City? How about the girl that was kidnapped in Missouri? Yeah, there are violent people in the country. And yeah, Donald Trump uses colorful language, but the bottom line is immigration is killing Joe Biden's campaign right now. This is why he has a low approval rating. This is why Donald Trump is honing in on this. And people are responding to it, and people are fed up with it. And if you want to call 2/3 of the country racist or xenophobic because they're in a mood right now that they want this fixed, yes, agree. By all means, go on.
Yeah, go on. Tell them. Tell 2/3 of the country they're racist and xenophobic for wanting the border secure. That's a real winning strategy for the Biden team, and Donald Trump has honed in on this.
This is not a normal situation. This is not, oh, isn't it wonderful, these wonderful people. These people are drug dealers, gang members, killers in so many different ways. No. And we probably have 18 million. We'll have 20 million by the time we get this guy out of there. But we got to get him out fast. We got even bigger problems. We got to get him out fast. The biggest problem is what he's saying to Russia, China, to Kim Jong-un, North Korea. What he's saying to these countries, they're laughing at us. They can't believe this has happened to America. On day one, I will seal the border, stop the invasion, and send Joe Biden's illegal aliens the hell back home.
Now, one of the notable points here is behind him there were people holding up signs, campaign signs, and some of those were his mugshot that the campaign had blessed people holding up, which I thought was interesting. But then I play this clip again. Rachel Morin's family were there, the young lady who was murdered by an illegal alien.
And we're deeply grateful for the brother, sister of Rachel, Michael Morin, Aaron Morin Lehman. Would you stand up, please, wherever you may be? They've gone through hell. I've watched them on television. I've watched you on television, and it is a tough deal. People say time. I don't know about time. I don't know if that's the answer. Thank you very much. Michael and Aaron, we grieve Rachel's loss. We pray that God will ease your pain, and we resolve to secure our border so this will never happen again. But you know it's going to happen again because we have an incompetent man. He's an incompetent, and he's happens to be the president. You know, all he has to do is say, close the border. He doesn't need Congress. I need Congress. I didn't have Congress.
That's Donald Trump at a rally in Philadelphia where behind him was a very diverse crowd, male, female, black, white, Hispanic. I mean, obviously staged by the campaign. All the campaigns do that. They want a plethora of people of diversity behind the candidates. It's notable the Trump campaign, which used to not do this, has now embraced that tactic. And then on this message, it's a message that's going to resonate, I think, far more than calling Trump a convicted felon. Because you can call Trump a convicted felon, but that's not going to bring back Laken Riley. You can call Donald Trump a convicted felon, but that's not going to bring back Rachel Morin. What would have had you secured the border? And Joe Biden didn't. The fact is, Joe Biden on Thursday at the debate is going to focus on Donald Trump being a convicted felon and just a bad guy and a threat to democracy. And Donald Trump can focus on the issues. Donald Trump can focus on the murders by illegal aliens. And when Joe Biden responds that, well, you know, there are more people, disproportionately American citizens are more likely to commit a crime than an illegal alien, Donald Trump can say, wrong. Every illegal alien who came into the country committed a crime by coming here illegally. So 100% of illegal aliens are criminals out of the gate. And two, maybe so on other crimes, but these people would be alive had the border been secured. This talking point from the left that actually, illegal aliens are far less likely to commit a crime than an American citizen. No, wrong. They committed a crime by crossing the border. 100% of them are criminals. Beyond that, they're trying to keep their head down to be deported. Yeah, they probably are less likely. They have an incentive. And yet, look at the ones who are coming here murdering Americans. These people would be alive, but for these illegal aliens. You don't even want to call them illegal aliens. In fact, where is this? Simone Sanders, who worked for Kamala Harris, was on television the other day on a debate. She's on with Kevin Roberts. They're on MSNBC on the weekend. And listen to this. This actually happened to Kevin Roberts on MSNBC from Simone Sanders.
What do you tell the parents of those people, those young girls who were killed? This is absurdity. The preponderance of these people, Michael, are male.
But what is the difference between an illegal immigrant who unfortunately engages in that activity.
And we don't like that. I want to be clear. We don't use the term illegal. So
yeah, we don't,
undocumented individuals.
Wait. To be clear, so she's correcting Michael Steele, the former RNC chairman, who's also an MSNBC. To be clear, we don't like that term. They're undocumented. They're not illegal aliens. No, they're illegal aliens. The majority of this country uses that. I bet she corrects people who say Latinx as well, who refuse to say Latinx. Y'all, the left is language policing murderers so that we don't hurt their feelings. The unchecked left in this country that thinks it's dominant, which is going to provoke a backlash. The question is whether or not Donald Trump himself can take advantage of that. Ed Whelan, who works at the Ethics and Public Policy Center in Washington, tweeted something out earlier. I thought it was notable that he said Donald Trump supporters make the worst case for supporting Donald Trump, and Donald Trump's opponents make the best case for supporting Donald Trump. And there's some truth in that. And all you have to do is let the left talk, and they discredit themselves on these issues. When they're correcting people on MSNBC for saying illegal alien, when they're trying to defend illegal aliens, saying Donald Trump's rhetoric against these murderers is xenophobic, this doesn't play well for the Democrats. All Donald Trump has to do is talk about that issue, play to those issues. Joe Biden can only attack the character of Donald Trump. Donald Trump can go after Joe Biden's policies. And I have a sneaking suspicion, because I'm encountering this more and more with people who don't like Donald Trump, where they kind of sigh and they say, I don't like him. Never liked him. But I sure do miss his policies. If you don't like Joe Biden and you don't like Donald Trump, but you like Donald Trump's policies and not Joe Biden's policies, who do you think you're going to vote for? You're going to go vote for Donald Trump. It is, no pun intended, the trump card of this election for Trump to keep focusing on those issues. There are outside groups like Americans for Prosperity focusing on those issues. Like, for example, the border. They've got a new website, secureborder.secureamerica.com, where they're driving people to go see the common sense solutions to secure the border. Americans for Prosperity's foundation has been taking people to the border to see the human and ecological toll of this mass wave of humanity coming across the border. And then Americans for Prosperity has secureborder.secureamerica.com for people to go see the common sense solutions that we can deploy to secure the border. Border Patrol agents, technology, more judges for amnesty, more funding to secure the border, stronger policies, the Remain in Mexico policy, things like that. They're all there. SecureBorder, and then you can get involved and remind your member of Congress that it's time to take action to secure the border. SecureBorder, The website is brought to you by Americans for Prosperity. You can go find the solutions and get your friends, and then sign up, get involved to advocate for common sense solutions to secure the American border. Greetings. So I want you to be grateful and thankful about something if you don't live in Atlanta, Georgia. And that is that you do not live in Atlanta, Georgia. You can be grateful and thankful for that. For those of you who live in Atlanta, Georgia, on Thursday, you're going to have Lionel Messi, the U.S. Olympic soccer team, Donald Trump, and Joe Biden all in town at the exact same time. I don't think people were coordinating schedules. So a buddy of mine, so there's an U.S. Olympic soccer team match on Thursday night, and the pregame is Argentina versus somebody in the Copa America soccer series. And the tickets to see Argentina play are more expensive than the tickets to see the U.S. Olympic team play, because there's more interest in watching Lionel Messi play for Argentina than there is to watch the American Olympic soccer team. But all of that stands in the shadows of what's happening up the street. Now, CNN is no longer at the CNN Center in Atlanta. They've moved up to Turner Broadcasting, which is across from Georgia Tech, Midtown Atlanta, right on the connector. That's I-75, I-85 at Midtown Atlanta at 14th Street. And that's where Donald Trump and Joe Biden will be without an audience. It's just going to be them. And their microphones will be muted when they're not talking. They will have guests there. Donald Trump is saying that the future vice presidential nominee will be there. We'll see among those who are going to be present, who's going to be a surrogate for him after it's over. But all of this stuff is happening concurrently. It is going to be a disaster. In fact, I was asked if I would come be on TV with CNN for the debate. I was absolutely not. I would like to not have to be up there tomorrow for a Thursday TV appearance and would like to get home at a reasonable time. It's going to be an unmitigated traffic disaster. So that's all to say for those of you in Atlanta. My flagship station, WSB, actually has a helicopter. Nobody else does. And instead of relying on Waze and Google Maps, they have like helicopters in the sky watching the traffic for you so you can find your way around the city. Everybody else, just on Thursday, you can say, well, I'm glad I'm not in Atlanta. What Sherman did not burn down, these two old geezers for president have turned to gridlock. Oh, it's going to be a mess. It will. That's all right. We are in the run-up to the first presidential debate. It's going to be interesting to see. Without the microphones being on for the challenger, they're going to look foolish if they try to interject. I mentioned earlier, Maggie Haberman has reported, Republicans are reporting, Fox News is reporting, that Trump has concluded that in 2020 he interrupted Joe Biden way too much. He's already concluded that himself. Donald Trump is very aware of how he comes across on camera. So he doesn't want to interrupt Joe Biden. He wants Joe Biden to be able to speak freely. I still think the winning strategy for Trump is just let Joe Biden talk. The longer Joe Biden talks, without notes, mind you, he's not going to have a teleprompter. It's going to be off the top of his head. There will be no earpiece of people signaling Joe Biden. He's going to go off the rails. He's going to have a senior moment. And the Democrats are going to be all about maybe we need to move on from Joe Biden. As for me, I'm not sure what I'm going to do on Thursday night. I'm kind of thinking it would be fun to live stream the debate and talk over it like a Mystery Science Theater sort of thing. I'm not sure. Maybe we'll leave it alone. Who knows? Maybe I'll sit on my front porch and have a cigar and watch it. But in any event, it's coming up on Thursday night, and traffic's going to be a disaster in Atlanta. Now, tomorrow, I'll be back, obviously. The Supreme Court should have some major decisions tomorrow that we will have to cover in the show. It's going to be very interesting to see the shakeup of the U.S. Supreme Court and how its decisions play out. We're waiting for the big case about Donald Trump and immunity. Maybe that comes tomorrow. We'll find out.